सामगान विलोल साधु जन परिपालकामितार्थ विधात कीर्ति संजात सोम सूर्य प्रकाश सकल लोकाधीश श्री महाप्रभुवीर सिंधु गंभीर जय जय.
Namaskaram. In the critical analysis of Ramayana, we have had the opportunity to understand Lakshmana, and now we are going to go to two other brothers who are as important and probably add so much of value to the entire Ramayana. One is Bharata and the second is Shatrughna. So when we deal with Bharata, we need to understand the philosophical status with which he has been addressed by Valmiki in the Ramayana. The first is the concept of Paratantriyam, Bhagavat Paratantriyam. So when we discussed Lakshmana, there was this aspect called as Seshatvam, and Seshatvam has a lot to do with the Jivatma finding himself as very, very subservient to the Lord and offers his services to the Lord, and that is called Seshatvam. When we deal with the other concept, which is Paratantriyam, it has got two connotations. One, we need to understand what is the word Swatantra. Swatantra stands for something or somebody who is independent. Whereas when we deal with somebody who's dependent, it is called Paratantra. Bharata regarded himself as absolutely dependent on Rama. So his bhakti or his form of obeisances or veneration to Rama is referred to as Paratantriyam. Bharata also comes across as a character who has a huge lesson in for us and for our society. Something that has marred the Indian society for very long is the concept of hero worship. So we say this person is a hero, the male or the female, and we end up even building temples for those people whom we deem as heroes. This hero worship has a huge fallout as well. When you absolutely revere a person and you adore him, the adulations that you give to the person at times will shadow another person's abilities or capabilities, even though that person could be as talented and capable as this person whom we revere as hero. Bharata is a typical example of the fallout of hero worship. There are verses which state that Rama and Bharata looked very much alike. But we also need to understand that Bharata, when he reaches out to us, he comes across as a very soft-spoken, a very sensible person with huge capabilities. But because of the extreme love that the parents, the kith, the kin, and the citizens of Ayodhya had for Rama, Bharata's value was never understood. Here is a beautiful verse which goes in Ramayana. Gacchata matulakulam bharatena tatha anagaha Shatrughnaha nityashatrughnaha nitah priti puraskritaha. It says that all of them were married at, on one days, two to the daughters of Janaka Siradhvaja and two to the daughters of Siradhvaja's brother Kushadhvaja. So you had Sita and Urmila on one side, married to Rama and Lakshmana, and Kushadhvaja's daughters Mandavi and Shrutakirti being married to Bharata and Shatrughna. So there is this verse which is the first verse of Ayodhya Kandam, which says Gacchata Matulakulam. So Bharata along with Shatrughna went to his uncle's house in Kekaya Desha. It is then when Kaikeyi ventures to seek those two boons from Dasharatha, and Dasharatha, being the king who promises in haste and repents in leisure, gave away those boons. And as a result of those boons, Rama was asked to go on an exile to the forest for 14 years. And as Rama reached the harem of his mother Kaushalya, he convinced her. And later he moved to his own Antappuram, Shuddhatma, and spoke to Sita about this particular decision. He said Sita has to stay back, but Sita refused. She said she will accompany Rama. And as the two got out, Lakshmana accompanied them. So the trio went to the forest. Agratah prayayau Ramaha, Sita madhye sumadhyama, prishtatastu dhanushpanihi, Lakshmanaha anujagamaha. All three went to the forest. Now when Bharata was asked to come to Ayodhya, because by then Dasharatha was dead, he had passed away, and his Jivatma had left his material body. So while he was on his deathbed, Dasharatha said, "Hey Kaikeyi, despite me requesting you to take back your boons or not send Rama to the forest, you have been discourteous enough, you have been so hard enough, you have no iota of mercy in you, and you have wanted Rama to go and suffer in the forest. Now I tell you that my son Bharata, who's born of the both of us, is not my son anymore." So, because of the excess of love that Dasharatha had for Rama, that marred or shadowed Bharata's qualities. Bharata never asked for this kingdom. It was his mother who volunteered and asked for this kingdom. So Dasharatha could have at least waited for Bharata to come, or sought Bharata's opinion, or just kept quiet without saying anything about Bharata, but he did say. Later, when Bharata gets into the kingdom and realizes that his father had died and his brothers were out on the exile with Sita in the forest, he thought he was the root cause, and he went seeking pardon from Rama's mother Kaushalya. And Kaushalya says, "Do not act as if you do not know the ploy or plot played by your mother." So Kaushalya did not understand Bharata's qualities. Later, when Bharata goes to the forest, we see that Bharadwaja, as a rishi, who had to be hospitable to Bharata, states, "Bharata, I am very, very happy that you have entered my hermitage. I just hope that you don't cause any physical harm to Rama." Is this the way a Maharishi has to talk? No. But why did Bharadwaja do that? Because he thought that Bharata was the root cause, and all the more he had excess love for Rama. There is one place where Rama comes and informs Lakshmana, I've been asked to go to the forest, and Bharata has been asked to rule. It was just an information. But Lakshmana burst and he said, "How dare this king called Dasharatha give this kingdom to Bharata, which is like offering Purodosham." Purodosham is a certain dish that is made out of rice flour and offered in havans, homams. So how dare that the Purodosham which is being meant for the king of the forest called the lion is now being laid to a Gramasimham. Gramasimham in Sanskrit in turn means not the lion of the forest. It means not the lion of the village. It means the dog. So how dare this Purodosham be given to a dog which was meant for the king, for the lion? What it literally means is this kingdom was meant for you, Rama, and how dare it goes to Bharata? Look at the comparison he does. He says that Bharata is like a dog. Why? Because of the excess love that Lakshmana had for Rama. Later, when Bharata wants to bring his brother back to Ayodhya, he sets with his retinue, and while he is about to cross the Ganges and reach Sringiverapuram, where Guha was hospitable to Rama, Guha tells his tribal men, "Here comes the brother of Rama from Ayodhya. It seems to me that it is Bharata. I am going to kill him, because if he is going to cause any harm to Rama, I am going to kill him." Guha had never seen Bharata. He hadn't known what his nature was, what his qualities was, but he ends up saying that I shall kill Bharata. Why? Because of the excess love. See, this excess love is no harm, but that excess love could be harmful if it were going to the level of hero worship. That's very common that we find in the world. And as an Indian, I can tell you it's largely found in the Indian subcontinent, where let's take the entertainment industry. We love a person's acting. He is paid for that acting. He makes profits out of it. I like his acting. I have liked the story. I have liked the movie. There ends. That's where it stops, period. But what do? I create a fan club for that particular actor. I create a follower club for him. And locality after locality, there are people who say that I am a better fan or a follower to that actor, the male or the female, than you. And there are multiple debates and discussions which go on in the social media about whether this actor is good or that actor is good. So there are two groups, they keep fighting. And this is how hero worship spills to. And we go to the extent of having huge cutouts of those people from the entertainment industry outside cinema halls. And we do everything possible said in the Agama Shastras, like Abhishekam, to offering Naivedyam. We go to that extent, but that actor could just be a normal human being. So adoring or respecting the qualities of an individual is different, or respecting and adoring and worshipping the individual is different. So here people hero worshipped Rama, and the fallout was Bharata's qualities were never even valued. On the other hand, Right Honorable V. Srinivasa Shastri says, while Lakshmana evokes our love, Bharata evokes our respect and admiration. Now, on the one hand, we have seen the importance of Bharata, and I will have to take you to the other part where Bharata walks with his entire retinue and reaches Chitrakutam. And that's when he tells Rama, hey Rama, now we see that the entire retinue has come. You have to get back to Ayodhya. But Rama says this will be a huge hogwash. Because people will know that I've just come for 2-3 days and back to Ayodhya. This is wrong. I have to keep up my father's words. So I shall stay in the forest, and after 14 years I will come. That is when, upon Vasishtha's advice, Rama commands Lakshmana to get his pair of Padukas. Paduka is a Sanskrit word for one's footwear. In colloquial language, slippers. But in the Hindu tradition, it holds a lot of respect, because ultimately, even if they are insentient in nature, non-living in nature, isn't that pair of footwear is what that keeps our foot clean, keeps our foot away from the radiation that the earth emits after getting heated up. So in Hindu tradition, in fact, Paduka is referred to as a Devi, a consort of the Lord. And it is said that she accompanies the Lord throughout. And just for your information, we will be discussing this in the appreciation of Sanskrit literature subject, wherein Vedanta Deshika of the 13th century CE has written a 1008 versed poem on this theme called Paduka, called Paduka Sahasram. So these Padukas of Rama were given to Bharata. Bharata, who was till then insisting that Rama has to come to Ayodhya, now was convinced with the Padukas, because he thought there was so much of value in it. He picked up those Padukas and went back to Ayodhya, but not exactly to the city of Ayodhya, the flamboyant city of Ayodhya, but stayed in its outskirts called as Nandigramam, and offered his respects to the Padukas and let the Padukas rule. So Padukas were placed on the Simhasanam, and we had Bharata, who was just an executor. So he would get all the sanctions from the Padukas. Not that the Padukas spoke, but to him, Padukas were the Lord himself. So if at all there is a culture of Paduka Aradhanam, the worship of the Padukas, the first one, Bharataya Param Namostu Tasmai Prathamodaharanaya Bhakti Bhajam Yadupagyam Aseshataf Pritivyam Pratito Raghava Paduka Prabhava. It's a beautiful verse that brings the quintessence of the Padukas. There is another instance in the Ramayana when Shatrughna pulls the maidservant to Kaikeyi called Manthara, when he understands that she is the root cause for brainwashing Kaikeyi, who in turn sought boons from Dasharatha, who in turn asked Rama to go to the forest. So while she was pulled to the court in front of Bharata, Bharata asked, why have you pulled her? Shatrughna said, she needs to be killed. while he said so, Bharata said, she's not the cause of any of our problems. That is when Shatrughna thought for some time and said, Bharata, you're right. She is not the cause. It is your mother Kaikeyi who's the cause. Kaikeyi said, it is not me. And when Kaikeyi said that, Bharata thought, Shatrughna thought, if Kaikeyi is not the cause, who is the cause? Then Bharata said, Kaikeyi is not the cause. Oh, so you mean it's our father Dasharatha who is the cause? Bharata thought for a minute and said, Dasharatha is not the cause. My dear brother Bharata, when you say Manthara is not the cause, Kaikeyi is not the cause, Dasharatha is not the cause, then who is the cause? Then Shatrughna thought for some time and he said, Bharata, I tell you, it is Rama who is the cause because he should have denied going to the forest. That is when he says that it is not any of them who is the cause, Shatrughna, it is me. Had Bharata, that is me, who was never born, nobody would have suffered. So he took that responsibility upon himself. So he was a wonderful leader. So while we have seen his qualities on one side, we need to see the testimonial that was given to him, showered on him by Rama, because when Vibhishna seeks asylum at Rama's feet, Sugriva's opinion is sought. Sugriva says, Rama, you shouldn't be accepting Vibhishna. Rama asks, why? See, his brother Ravana is now confused, and in this state, this man Vibhishna has betrayed his brother, has abandoned his brother, and walked all the way to switched over sides. Rama did not speak. He did not reply because he knew that it was in the same state that Sugriva was when he abandoned his own brother Bali. The pot is calling the kettle black. But he kept quiet. He said, Sugriva, I absolutely respect your opinion, but remember, not every brother in this world is as sincere, honest, serving, selfless, loving as everybody was curious to know what Rama is going to say, as what Bharata is. All these years, Lakshmana was serving him and standing by his side. He could have taken Lakshmana's name and said, there is no brother who is sincere, loving, serving, selfless as Lakshmana. But he said, it's Bharata. Na sarve bhratarastata bhavanti bharatopama. Nobody can match my brother Bharata. But Lakshmana was not jealous. He felt, yes, Bharata deserves that credit. Why is this thought coming? Because Rama had immense love and respect for Bharata, and he valued the qualities of Bharata. So there is another instance in Aranyakanda where there is an elephant that comes over to the pond. The waters were so cold, and as it kept its trunk in the early hours of the morning, it immediately withdrew as if it had an electric shock. Looking at it, Lakshmana said, Bharata, Rama, when I look at this elephant, I think of what kind of life Bharata will be leading, because he is living on the outskirts of Ayodhya. He is not enjoying any of those comforts what the royal families enjoy. And there is Bharata. In the early hours of the morning, he will go to the rivers of Sarayu and take a bath in its waters. He must also be finding it very cold. I don't know how Bharata is managing. That is when Rama said, out of that shock, Lakshmana, we need to go back to Ayodhya now. I can't withstand the problems that Bharata is undergoing. That is when Lakshmana thought he had overdone his job and said, don't worry, Bharata will manage. There's Shatrughna, my brother next to him, he'll take care. So Rama's concern for Bharata, the love he had for Bharata, the respect that he had for Bharata was immense. While we have discussed Rama in detail, Lakshmana and Bharata to some extent, we need to understand the very, very little spoken about brother called Shatrughna. Let's go back to the verse of Ayodhya Kandam again, which says, Gachata matulakulam bharatena ratha anagaha Shatrughnaha nitya Shatrughnaha nita priti puraskritaha. So it says that Shatrugnaha, Nitya Shatrugnaha. He was called Shatrugna because he was a Nitya Shatrugna, the one who had won over his enemies entirely or completely. What was the enemy? Who was the enemy he had won? Of course, there is a Lavanasura Yuddham which comes in Uttarakandam where he fought a demon called Lavanasura. That's different. But why is he called a Shatrugna? Because in this world, Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism believes that God is important. He is to be loved. He is to be worshipped. Right. But God's creation, that's all of us, the friends and the kith and the kin and the human beings and the animals that we see around, they also deserve that love. That's where we have a problem. How do I shove the same love that I have on God on all these people? That's when Sanatana Dharma tells, view the Lord in the people. The Lord is no different from the bhaktas, the devotees. He is within them. So if I have to venerate a person who's next door, who has two hands as me, who has 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 nose and 1 mouth and 32 teeth as me, and I have to respect him like God, isn't that a challenge? So what is that which is an obstacle or impediment to my obeisances or the love or the sincerity and the selfless care that I offer to the people around me? It is the excess love, worship that I have towards the Lord. So only if I win over this Bhagavad Bhakti, will I be going to Bhagavata Bhakti. Only if I win over the impediment called devotion to God, will I be able to reach the next stage called devotion to his devotees. While Lakshmana and Bharata were extremely devoted to Bhagavan, to the Lord himself called Rama, Shatrughna was devoted to the devotee of Rama called Bharata. So his devotion was not to the Lord directly, it was to the Lord's devotee. So it was not Bhagavat Seshatvam like his brother Lakshmana, it was Bhagavata Seshatvam. So he was serving Bharata. It is for this reason they say service to mankind is service to God. Service to his devotees is service to just him. We have the Lord himself crying as in the human form in Ramavataram when Sita was abducted. When Bharata realized that he was the root cause of the miseries that Rama was facing, he cries. When Lakshmana realizes that Sita has been abducted, he cries. But rarely do we come across a situation in Ramayana where Shatrughna cries, because when you serve the devotees of the Lord, you are all the more confident, you're all the more successful, you're all the more strong and courageous. So Shatrughna was the one who brought light, showcased the world that service to devotees is the ultimate. So if we are going to serve the society, trust me, Hinduism says that is equivalent to serving the Lord. It doesn't say that you should not serve the Lord, you should hate the Lord, not of that sort. You need to love the Lord, you need to appreciate his creation, but when you are very, very courteous towards his devotees, sans discrimination, without seeing the economic status, gender, caste, creed, religion, then you go beyond and you start becoming a Shatrughna. Shatrughna, his role is very little, but it is at its zenith when we say that he served Bharata, he served the Lord's devotee, and that was equivalent to serving the Lord who was Rama himself. So Bharata Shatrughna, just like Rama Lakshmana, see, the order is Rama, Bharata, Lakshmana, Shatrughna, but we never say that way. Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna. So these pairs is what fraternity or brotherhood is all about. And this is what Ramayana in itself preaches about: conducive, very appreciated fraternity, brotherhood, which is called Saubhratritva.
निषादानां नेता कपिकुलपतिः कापि शबरी कुचेलकुब्जा व्रजयुवतयोः माल्यकृदति अमीषां निम्नत्वं वृषगिरिपतेरुन्नतिमपि. One of the beautiful verses from a poet called Vedanta Deshika of the 13th century. Of course, besides Rama, Sita, Rama's brothers, Rama's mothers, Ravana, Hanuman, there are a few other characters who last for a short period of time in Ramayana but do make a very positive impact in us. The first of them is Guha. Guha was a tribal hunter Besides being a hunter, he was also engaged in managing the boat services across the waters of Ganga. The Tamil poet, there is a Ramayana, a regional transcreation of Ramayana, Kamban. Like how we have Tulsidas ji in Hindi of Ramcharitmanas. We have Tunjat Ramanuja Eduttachan with Malayalam. We have Kuvempu's Ramayana in Kannada. We have Eknath's Bhāvartha Ramayana in Marathi. Same is the case with Tamil. We have Kamban. He describes the greatness of guha. Gangairu karayudayan kanakiranda navayan ungal kula nadarku uyir tunaivan uyartholan vengarayin yeru anayan virpiditta velayinan karkana tinmayan karaikana kadalan guhanennum payarudayan. Those of you who may not be able to understand Tamil, it's okay, but the essence is Guha was a tribal hunter, he was owning many boats, but what made him strikingly different was his unadulterated love and devotion for Rama. He has never seen Ayodhya, he has never come to Ayodhya, but he has heard that there is a grand city called Ayodhya which is managed by best of the kings. There is a prince called Rama who is very talented, humble, modest, powerful, vigorous, so on. So at one point in time, when he understands that Rama comes to Sringibherapura where he is living, he thinks this is an opportunity where God himself is blessing us. So he goes and offers his pranamams to Rama and tries to offer the best of hospitality. And as he offers the best of hospitality, he keeps telling, see what talent or what plus advantage do I have in me to even worship you. But Rama says, don't feel it that way, Guha. See, the way Rama engages Guha, he says, don't ever think like that, Guha. You are my best friend, Atma Samasakha, and he embraces him. So Guha to us comes for a very short period of time in Ayodhya Kandam, but his impact, see, when we see differences, the disparity in economic status, here we have Rama who's from the affluent aristocratic Kshatriya family, and here we have Guha who's a tribal hunter. There is no match in any of the statuses of the family, yet both of them became the best of friends. So here we have Guha who comes as an exemplification of friendship. Followed by this, we will move to another character, a very, very important character who's actually not a human being but is a bird, is a scavenger bird. His name is Jatayu. Of course, Jatayu was regarded as a friend to Dasharatha. Now you may wonder, how can Dasharatha have a friend as a vulture? Please, we live in this world where we domesticate cats, we domesticate cows, we domesticate dogs. And we say, this is my child, this is my best friend. People say that their pets are their best friends. So what's wrong in Dasharatha seeing Jatayu as his best friend? So Jatayu introduces himself that way and says, I am the best friend to your father. I shall always be there for your help. That is when Sita gave a call. Can somebody come and protect me? Ha Lakshmana, Ha Rama. This call of emergency, of help, of caution was heard by Jatayu. Jatayu comes. Jatayu very well knew that he was fighting a losing battle. To fight Ravana was not easy. Ravana had vanquished so many devas, so many yakshas, so many kinnaras, so many vidyadharas in battles. And here is one scavenger fighting that man. Jatayu very well knew he was fighting a losing battle, but to him, protecting Sita till his last breath is what he thought was his duty. Vikrama Yasholaba Vikrita Jivita Gridharaja Deha Didakshalakshita Bhaktajana Dakshinya. Vikrama Yasholaba. You know what he bartered for his life? He bartered his fame, says the poet, which means that even if his life is gone, his fame is lasting. So that was the barter that he had. So Jatayu comes across to us as a scavenger who lives on dead things, but he tried his level best till his last dying moment to protect Sita. There have been researchers who have said that Jatayu was granted moksha. Moksha is that state in the Indian philosophy where we believe that the Jivatma goes to a certain real abode where there is no return. Otherwise, the Indian philosophy believes that the body, which is a material body, is perishable, is destroyable. Whereas the Jivatma within the body that takes complete control of the body is eternal, is imperishable. This is what we believe. So what happens when the body perishes and the Jivatma exits? It goes to another body. So this is what we call death of the material body, transfer of the Jivatma to another body, birth of that material body. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So this process goes on. It's like a cycle. You're born, you're living, you're dead. You're born again. You're living, you're dead. You're born again. So you're born and you're dead again. So this cycle breaks where the Jivatma goes to a certain abode where it doesn't have to return, where it doesn't have to be reborn. That is called moksha. This state of moksha is believed in Sanatana Dharma, the Hinduism, that the practitioner has to either practice Bhakti Yoga or Sharanagati. This scavenger, Jatayu, did none. It neither practiced Bhakti Yoga nor Sharanagati. And here there is the Jatayu which is being granted moksha by Rama. Why? Because Jatayu's sacrifice was so pure and pristine that it forced even Rama, who had vowed to the world that I am a normal human being, I am not divine, I am not semi-divine, I am a normal human being like you. See, if your wife is lost, you will cry. If my wife is lost, even I will cry. See, this is how he keeps telling the world. Suddenly he looks at a dying Jatayu and says, go to moksha. This is not the trait of a normal human being. But Jatayu's greatness was so much so that it even forced Rama to say such words. So Jatayu again comes across, but again, the service rendered to Rama doesn't stop only with Jatayu. Jatayu had served Sita. Jatayu's brother Sampati served Rama through Hanuman, because Sampati was the brother to Jatayu who was handicapped a long time back. When he listens and understands that his brother Jatayu is no more, he starts weeping and then understands the situation in which the monkeys and their leader Hanuman was. Then he says, I am able to see a lady with the description that you have given, shedding tears under the shade of a certain tree which is in an island a few yojanas from here. So he is indicating that Sita is still alive somewhere down south. So he has also given directions to Hanuman. If Jatayu protected, Jatayu's brother gave directions to Hanuman. So their family has been engaged in only service to Rama. Next we come across another character called Shabari. See, Rama and Lakshmana, as they walked further south from Panchavati, they come across this ashrama, the hermitage. And as they enter the hermitage, they are welcomed by a very old lady who was called Shabari. Shabari is indicated by a word called Shramani by Valmiki. Shramani in Sanskrit means a lady who lives like an ascetic, a recluse. Because in Sanatana Dharma, in the larger civilization, tradition and culture that we follow in the Indian subcontinent, men were given the opportunity to become ascetics, a sannyasi. A sannyasi is a person who abandons most riches, all riches, family, relationships, and is absolutely dedicated only to medication and tapasya and austerities. Men are allowed to become sannyasis, whereas women aren't. Why? Because it is generally believed that a woman, in whichever part of the world she is, whether she is in Russia, Scotland, Eurasia, Europe, North America, Australia, Africa, whichever part of the world the woman is, she is much more benevolent, merciful, and strong than the man. We may have noticed in our very own families, when our mothers make a certain dish and it turns out extremely delicious, and she's in the process of distributing that dish to people who have come to her house, and finally there's very little left, and the child comes and asks, "Mom, I would like to have another cup," she will happily give that away and she'll say, "Okay, I'll go hungry, there's no problem," because she has sacrificed her own pleasure for the sake of others. So Hinduism believes a woman doesn't have to undergo a ritual where she has to become a recluse or sannyasi. Even her normal life, she is more sacrificing than what an average human being is. So if at all a woman unofficially practices sannyasa ashrama, she is referred to as Shramani. So here Valmiki introduces Shabari as Shramani. Who was a Shabari? Shabari was in fact a student as well as a maid in the ashrama of a rishi called Matanga. While Matanga was being served by Shabari, at one point in time he said, "I'm going to walk deeper into the woods. I feel that I'm going to die in a few days, and I want to die peacefully, meditating on the Supreme Paramatma Narayana, so I'm going to leave this place." She said, "Guru, it's because of you that I am existing. I shall also follow you to the forest." He said, "Don't. Because there will be two major visitors." See how they foresee. Two major visitors who will be crossing by this region. We have to offer them hospitality. So Shabari thought, when the Guru has said, when the teacher has said this is the right thing, let me do so. And she starts collecting fruits. Because she knows that she will have guests and she's old. She didn't know that if suddenly those two guests come, whether she will have the strength in her to cook something for them immediately. So she started collecting the best of fruits. As people who have been living in forests, they know which tree gives what kind of a fruit, and which fruit is edible at what point of the day, and which fruit should be edible in which form. So she would go to a tree that would bear a lot of fruits, would take one fruit, taste. Oh yes, this fruit tastes really good. So I'm going to pluck the remaining fruits of the tree. Remember this, she used to pluck one fruit of the tree, bite it and check if it tastes good, and would pluck the remaining fruits, slice it and dry it under the sun and make them dry fruits. This is how we make dry fruits, raisins and all that, right? Because she did not know when those two guests will coming, and these fruits have a certain shelf life. So only if she would convert them to dry fruits will they last. And she still collected dry fruits and waited for a certain period of time. And that is when Rama and Lakshmana come. She welcomes them with so much of love and affection. See, this has a great value for us. When guests come home, how should we treat them? See, if somebody comes to your house, of course you have to check their identity. You can't let anybody enter. Check their identity. You let them inside your house and you say, "Can I offer you some water, sir?" Or if it's a lady, "Ma'am, can I offer you some water?" Whichever way you call her, auntie, uncle, whichever way. "Can I offer you some water?" Go get some water. And once they consume that water, "Can I offer you more? Will you like to have a cup of tea or coffee? Can I give you some biscuits?" See, you will have to make the guest feel so important. That's the whole art. What, imagine somebody comes to my house and I don't even look at that person and I say, "No, I'm not going to look at him." Then how do we call ourselves human beings? Aren't we continuing to be animals? Look at Shabari. She offered those dry fruits. Here there is a misconception that Shabari used to pluck fruits and she used to bite them, and the remaining half Rama used to have. When we live during the times where they say that be very careful, your saliva particles can carry viruses, pathogens. Do you think the ancient Indian civilization, which was much more orthodox, will let one person bite and the other half the other person eats? However close that person is, this isn't recommended, right? So Shabari did offer fruits, and Shabari said, Rama, for more help, meet up with Sugriva. And she puts her palms together and she thinks of her guru and she goes to moksha. Here we need to see a difference. Just a few minutes back I said Jatayu was a dying vulture, a scavenger. Rama said, I will grant you moksha. Same is the case with Shabari. He could have said, I will grant you moksha. He didn't do that. She meditated on her guru and she went to the abode from where there is no return. While one instance he granted, to the other instance he is a witness, he did not grant. Why this difference? Because Shabari had an association of a good teacher. You need a guide. You need somebody in your life who can guide you, who can tell you this is good, this is bad. So here we had Shabari who had the intervention of her guru. As Shabari attained moksha, Rama continued his journey. He met up with Sugriva. We have discussed Sugriva in various instances. But Sugriva is still regarded one of the very good friends of Rama. So much so that Rama had immense care and regard for him. When the entire monkey army reaches Lanka, from Suvela Parvata, Sugriva jumps on to the balcony of Ravana, fights him. He's a ferocious monkey, right? He scratches him, he fights him, takes the crown of Ravana and comes to the side of Rama. Rama says, why did you do this monkey-like act? I know you're a monkey, but why did you do this act? Sugriva, what you have done to you may be an act of courage. I was so worried. Suddenly you go fight Ravana and come. What if he manages to kill you? I will lose the best of my friends in my life. Sugriva, don't ever do this. See, look at the concern what Rama shows towards Sugriva. Next, we are going to deal with very, very important character called Vibhishna. Vibhishna was the brother, younger brother to Ravana. Incidentally, being born and brought up in the same atmosphere like that of Ravana and Kumbhakarna, Vibhishna was very different. He would follow every bit of the rule. I don't have to give him a certificate. Nobody else has to give him a certificate. See where the certificate comes from. When Shurpanaka comes in the disguise of an Apsara Stree to lure Rama, Rama asks, who are you? She says, I am Shurpanaka, the sister to Ravana. Ravanaha Rakshaseshwaraha. He is the head of all Rakshasas. She introduces her family. At that point in time, she says, Rama, everything in my family, in my Vamsha, in my clan is picture perfect. But if there is one thing that we are all worried about, it is about the birth of my brother called Vibhishna, who is a good man. He follows every rule. She says, how could such a good man be born into our family? That is our only blot. Vibhishana is to Dharmatma. So the good certificate, the contact certificate for Vibhishana comes from his very own sister, Shurpanakha. On the other side, Vibhishana advises Ravana and says, leave Sita, she is somebody else's wife, leave her. But Ravana doesn't relent. That is when Ravana's son Indrajit mocks and humiliates his uncle Vibhishana. Vibhishana says, it's high time that I leave this place, because I cannot give company to a person who has abducted somebody else's wife. I have done my duty of advising, and he leaves. Here, this departure of Vibhishana from Lanka has been viewed by a small section of scholars as deserting the brother, which is wrong. There has never been a war between Rama and Ravana till then to even gauge who is more powerful. So in fact, Ravana is in his very own land, and if Rama has to come, he has to fight in Ravana's land. And who is the army to Rama? It's all the monkeys. So in every possible way, Rama was on the weak side, Ravana was on the stronger side. But here Vibhishna leaves his brother, so it's not an act of deserting his brother. But it is an act to say that I have done my level best to advise my brother. If my brother doesn't listen, as an individual, I will always pick up what is ethically, morally correct, and I will go to that side. So this is absolutely a good act of Vibhishna. Vibhishna comes to the Indian side. The monkeys don't entertain him. Sugriva says, stay there. What should I go and tell? Nivedayasya mam kshipram. Nivedayata mam kshipram. Go fast and tell Rama that I have come. Vibhishanam upasthitam sarvaloka sharanyaya raghavaya mahatmane. Sugriva goes and tells Rama. You know what, Rama? That Ravana's... Actually, Rama for an instant thought that Ravana had come. Is it, Sugriva? No. Ravana's brother Vibhishana has come. Okay. Why has he come, Sugriva? He wants to seek asylum at your feet. He has come as a refugee. Rama thought it's high time that I give him refuge. But what is your thought, Sugriva? How dare he come? He has come to divide and rule us. He has come to cause enmity between us. Every possible accusation was thrown by people around, from Jambavan to Angada to Sugriva and all monkeys. That is when Rama consulted Hanuman and asked. See, they all say that Vibhishana is bad and we must not accept him. What is your thought? Vibhishana says, Hanuman says, Vibhishana is good, he must be accepted. Rama takes the best out of the two. They have said that Vibhishana is bad, he should not be accepted. Hanuman said Vibhishana is good, he has to be accepted. Rama concludes, even if Vibhishana is bad, I will accept him. Sakrityeva prapannaya tavasmiti cha yachate abhayam sarvabhutebhyaha dadam yetad vratam mama. This is my vow, it is my pledge to give asylum to anybody who seeks it. So I will accept him. Vibhishana, at one point in time, after the yuddham, after the war, he sees the dead body of his eldest brother Ravana lying on the ground. Vibhishana's sons did not survive, neither did Kumbhakarna survive. The only person who could perform the funeral rites, the samskaram, was Vibhishana. He says, I will not do it to a brother whose character was loose, who did not listen to the best of advisors, who has destroyed the country. But you know what Rama says? Maranantani vairani. See, all your grudge, you can show that till the person is living. Now your brother is dead. Don't continue that revenge attitude on him. Forgive him. Forgive him completely. He will be a very good man in his next birth. Don't worry. This birth, yes, there were some problems. Accept him. He is dead. Perform the funeral rites. The moment Rama says these words, Vibhishana performs the funeral rites. So he respected Rama so much. He valued that friendship so much that he would respect him. So Vibhishana comes to us as a wonderful devotee of Rama. Shabari comes to us across as a wonderful devotee to her Guru as well as Rama. Same is the case with Guha. Same is the case with Sugriva. Same is the case with Jatai. These 5 characters, they come for shorter spans in Ramayana, but they have a very great impact. Ramayana on the whole has characters who come for a larger section, even for smaller instances. In whichever way they come, Valmiki has given them an opportunity to showcase their qualities. He has pitched them so very well. It is the success of Valmiki that Ramayana, the life history, the biography of Rama, has been presented to us in such an engaging as well as philosophical, theological fashion. If you were philosophical on one side, it may not be engaging. If it's completely engaging, it will lack philosophy. There is absolute philosophy and there is absolutely engaging. So Valmiki has achieved something which most other poets and scholars in the last 1500 years have struggled to achieve. So our namaskarams to Valmiki. Valmiki Giri Sambhuta Ramasagara Gamini Punati Bhuvanam Punya Ramayana Mahanadi. So this verse says Valmiki Giri Sambhuta. Valmiki is like a mountain, it seems. And from the top there is a source from which the river originates. Ramasagara Gamini. So the ocean, and that river starts flowing towards an ocean. And that ocean is Ramasagaram. Rama, because that ocean itself is Ramanama. So Ramanamam is the ocean and the mountain is Valmiki and the river starts. And what is that river that originates from Valmiki, the mountain, and reaches Ramanamam, the name of Rama, which is the ocean? It is Ramayana, the book. Punati Bhuvanam Punya Ramayana Mahanadi. So we have seen the beauty of the mountain called Valmiki. We have engaged ourselves for hours together in this beautiful river where we have rafted called as Ramayana, and I'm sure all of us will enjoy the name of Rama in the years to come. Namaskaram.
साधु जन विनुत जय तुम